Hello, everyone. Jason, thanks for the introduction. But we're excited today to talk about what really could be the perfect drive-through. So, really excited to have my panelists here today to share what they've been working on. But first, we just wanted to give a little bit of an introduction of who we are and what we've been working on. So, I'm Joanne Heyob. I lead the operations strategy and design team at WD Partners. We are an end-to-end consulting firm based in Columbus, Ohio, and when we think about what we do for our customers and our clients, we're really a one-stop shop. So we've got everything in-house, and we can help you think about it, design it, and build it. So that's kind of how I think about our role at WD. And I've been talking a lot about drive-thrus. It's something I know if you've followed WD at all. I spend a lot of time in parking lots. I spend a lot of time watching cars, a lot of time in the backs of kitchens and understanding the operations of it. And really wanted to share a little bit about the research that we've recently done. And I'll get into that in a minute. But one of the things we really wanted to understand is, now that we've been innovating and really going hardcore over the last couple of years, and we're in this kind of implementation and execution phase. What does the customer really think about all the things that have been happening in the drive-thru? So I'm going to share a little bit about that, but I'm going to turn it over to Pradnya to give her a little introduction and what she's been up to as well at KFC.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Good morning. First of all, very privileged to be here. And thank you, RestaurantSpaces. Love this event and love the kind of small group, great conversations. So again, a big shout out to you all. I'm Pradnya. I head the design, construction, consumer experience for KFC. I've been with the brand for 12 plus years, but there's a slight twist to it. The first 8 years, I was doing the same role in India. And the last 5 years, I have been looking after the United States. So you can see that within that time frame itself, I have gotten to work with different consumer profiles, different insights, tons of diversity, and the same brand serving everyone. So I'll be very glad to kind of have this discussion today. It's one of my most favorite topics, so thank you.
Yeah. All right, Min, take it away.
All right, good morning. My name is Min Lee. I'm the CIO at Checkers and Rallies. Been in restaurant technology for over 20 years now, from large to medium brands, based out of Dallas, Texas. Corporate is in Tampa, so we're fully remote, but I love talking about technology, love talking about a lot of new things we're working on. I love innovation, so that's why I'm here, just to help spread the word.
Yeah. So I thought we could dig in, and just one of the things that, I wanted to understand from a research perspective is, what do the consumers think about the drive-thru, right? So in the last couple of years, we've done everything from adding different technology, digital ordering boards, AI voice things, all of these different really intuitive technology pieces. And we also asked them, around service levels. So we sent out a survey, and we did, what if we had to rank these 11 things around, what's most important to you in the drive-thru. And I've got a slide, so I'm going to have Jason click it there for me. So you can see, out of all of the things in technology, still the number one thing that consumers want in a drive-thru is they want to make sure the order is accurate. So on top of everything else, you've got to have order that's got to be accurate. It's also got to be fresh and hot. They want to make sure that they've got good food that's coming out of the drive-thru. And then really the third thing is tell me where to go. Right? It's that intuitive wayfinding. So especially now when we've added mobile-only lanes, we've added curbside, we've added pickup for apps. There's a lot of different places for the consumers to go on the lot. So that's kind of the third thing, which kind of surprised me a little bit to see how that ranked on top of some other things. So thinking about that, I wanted to take it a step further and said, all right, well, with all these new formats that are going on out there, what do consumers think about it? Right? So we've seen, Taco Bell put out a new format, Burger King's put out formats, Schlotzsky's, Jimmy John's, you can go on and on. So we picked some of these and said, would you travel to these? Would you go to these? And overwhelmingly, consumers said yes. We want to see what's the latest and greatest, out there. And how they ranked it, kind of their top 2 boxes was, I want to understand like how convenient these new tech things are for me, and out of curiosity, you know. But it wouldn't necessarily replace their normal trip to their local, QSR right down the road. So, there's a lot of buzz out there, but, when I think about it, it really becomes, you got to get back to the basics, right? So you got to have the basic fundamentals of the foundation of restaurants has to be right there, right? Before you can do anything else, because everything else will disappoint them if we don't have, your order correct or it's hot when you get out the window. So would love to ping it over to you, Min, because I know, Checkers and Rallies has been, leading the way with some of the technology that's out there. And I'd love for you just to share what you've been up to, what that journey is around it, and tell us more.
Absolutely. So when I look at technology, right, the term information technology has been out there forever, and it really, I asked the question, is it really information technology? Right? The way I look at it from a different looking glass, I call it experience technology. It's like, what experience can I bring to whoever uses the technology? From customers, from employees, from even in between systems with integrations. And when we went down the road with AI technology, we really were trying to solve a problem, right? We had high turnover, labor was hard to come by. The only real way to fix that is through automation. So we went down that journey a few years ago, and gosh, the experience has been crazy. We've learned so much. We look at from the customer side point of view, with AI, we're over 350 locations with the AI technology now, and we've been able to provide a consistent and standard level of service and experience across all the restaurants that have it. And then you look at an employee side, the experience, what employees go through is that, especially in the cashier job, it's one of the most difficult jobs out there. You're taking orders, you're putting food out the window, you're filling drinks, you're doing all multitasking in so many ways. And we figured, how can we simplify the job? If we make the job simpler, it'll help with turnover, it'll help with the employee experience, it'll help so much. So, and that's what we set out to do. And now every time we go into restaurants, they all love it. I can't stress enough how much employees love the automation, not having to worry about putting orders in anymore. And our accuracy rate is around 95, 96% accuracy, which is amazing compared to if you look at the Googles, the Alexas, the Siris out there, how accurate are those? Like half the time I want to throw my Alexa out the window.
Yeah, for sure.
So we're seeing a lot of success there.
Yeah, and what I love that you said is instead of just calling yourself like, technology or IT, it's experience technology. And I think that really brings it full circle, right? You're thinking about the customer experience as well as the employee experience. So I know at KFC, y'all have been doing a lot of work on the back of house and the associate experience. So I'd love for you to kind of share your journey and where you have been taking that, because it's really exciting for me as an operator to think about, some of the back of house enhancements you've been making.
Oh, for sure. It's within the restaurants. That's one of my favorite places to go as a designer. In the sense, like I do consider that it's the engine. Mm-hmm. I always give car analogies, and that's like the engine of the car. So we have to first make sure that is absolutely efficient. And that can only happen if we really live in our team member shoes. So being a designer myself, it's so important that we go and understand the procedures, understand the pain points, and then also make sure that, it's just not simplification of the back of house, it's also future-proofing our business based on our menu vision and what new products are being thought through for the brand. Because once we put an asset down there, it's going to be there for 10, 20 years, if you will. And hence, it's become so important. So what we've been working on is really making the back of house efficient. I would not say smaller, I would say efficient. And our mantra or the basic filter or the rule is not more than 2 steps or 3 at the most. but how can we crack those adjacencies? Also keeping in mind, so it directly relates to team member comfort and convenience. We are also we are all human beings. Like if we have to work in our kitchen like crazy, we would just get exhausted after preparing a meal. So again, that's supremely important. But at the same time, are we doing enough for our team members to create their break spaces? It's not like a checkbox thing that there's a break space. What are we putting in there? Whom are we caring for? So we are working on that as well. And despite that, we are able to really right size our assets. That's one. But then we are also thinking about, it's not about giving them a locker space or something. We're even thinking to the depth and detail of how can we give them a psychological break from working in a kitchen. And then that break is really a break that matters. So throughout, like a 360 experience for team members is what we're working on. And then I think I'll pause there because you asked me about back of house, but I'm so keen to share about what else we're doing.
Yeah,
but I'll definitely give Min a chance to.
No, I mean, I love that. I think, with labor being such a challenge right now in the industry, and, you're thinking about things that, are helping those employees become, loyal to your brand, right? Whether it's through, AI, voice ordering, and, taking away the chaos. Min, I think you said it best, like the chaos of just taking an order, right? You're like, I've got to make the drink, I got to make sure it's right, I got to greet, I got to say hello, I got to do all those things. And then, you're really talking about the total employee experience. Like, give me a break when I'm on break. Like, give me a place to just decompress, not sitting next to like the mop sink and, on a little table and chair to like eat my lunch. So, I love that. So let's talk a little more about the associates. So Min, I know you mentioned, the employees, when you go into your locations, they love having this AI system. So, talk a little bit more about that, what it's done for the employee experience and even the impact that's had on the customer.
Oh, for sure. So on the employee side, every time I go in restaurants, like I said, they just love the assistant. They refer to her as another employee that I wouldn't say never calls in, because there are times she'll call in, right? And when that happens, it's not pretty, but as long as there's a backup plan, we're all good. Just the simplicity. And one of the other things that you mentioned, Pradnya, is the kitchen innovation that you guys are working on. We did time and motion studies, and we looked at how much employee just walks back and forth on each shift. And we discovered that by just changing equipment around to strategic places, we save over 1.5 miles of walking per employee per shift. So that's huge on the employee side.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So how have your employees been reacting to the things that you've done, not only for them, but even with, you mentioned placement of your assets and, taking those steps and footsteps out. So how have they responded?
So that's a great question, because that's our data source. So designers are a little quirky. I think few of you will kind of agree with me. We have different ways of collecting data, and I'm a big fan of also collecting, like just talking to people, and that's my biggest data source. We talk to our team members, and then just asking questions. You won't believe their first reaction was, how do you know that I take so much steps? How do you even know that you're thinking? They were just kind of blown away that we're thinking about steps, which kind of like was a big one for me, that, oh my God, then there's so much to do, and probably we haven't done our best for our team members. But then as we start digging in, the real insights come from there, and you can only see that just that being heard and someone's actually working on it is super, super insightful. But also the best functional, always listen to your operators, always. That's the starting point. The best insights and the best guidance comes from them, and that's what we follow.
Yeah. So we kind of talk like right now that it sounds very easy, but I know getting to this point has not been an easy journey. So what have been some of your watch outs or some of your biggest learnings on implementing, whether it's the changes in the back of house or for you rolling out like this experience technology for your teams? Like, how did you get there? And, I know it wasn't like, smooth sailing from day one, especially if she calls off sick.
Oh my God, we've learned so much. I could talk for hours of the learnings, but I'll just hit some of the highlights. One of the biggest things we learned is, you got to have good equipment, good bandwidth. Your vehicle detector has to work, your speaker and microphone, your internet speed, because if you look at the technology, it's recording in real time, sending it up to the cloud. The natural language processor is just parsing out each word, trying to convert it through a bunch of different workflows into a possible menu item or a response back to the customer. So doing that in real time, you need everything to work in sync. So that's one thing. And another thing is what we learned quickly is we initially went with a one-size-fits-all model where we could say, hey, this is what the AI is going to do across the board, no matter what Checkers or Rallies you go to. You're going to get the exact same language, exact same script. And we find out that it works great in a handful of restaurants in a region, but as you scale across multiple regions, multiple states, multiple franchises, one size does not fit all. Everyone's got their unique menu items, unique pricing, unique greetings per region. There's so much differences, and we had to make changes. And even the volume of the restaurants during each day part, it plays a variable into what the experience should be. So, and the third thing is scaling, right? In order to scale the technology nationwide, like we realize the onesie twosies are easy in the pilot, but we can't have people be on site across the country as we're rolling 10, 15 a day. So we had to figure out how to do it remotely, completely remotely, the training, everything remotely, and have people be able to run with it. So that was a good challenge. And the last thing I'd like to mention is that you gotta set expectations out there. Like I said, the system is 95% accurate, but there's that 5% where someone has to intervene and jump in. So like a lot of times people roll out AI or innovation, they expect 100%, and we know that it's not going to happen. Even with these big tech companies throwing billions at their systems, even they're not at 100%. Setting a lot of expectation, looking at your ROI, right? Set up front what your ROI is, your business plan, because AI might not be for everybody. It works in certain footprints, certain traffic, and depends on how you tune it. It could be a benefit. Other companies, it could not be. So as long as you set these expectations up front and be ready with whatever your business plan is and use cases for AI, I think you'd be successful.
Yeah, I love that you said it's not a one size fits all, because I think a lot of times we think it's got to be for every store, every format, and in some cases it makes a lot of sense, that you need this to help speed and accuracy and getting that throughput through the drive-thru. And then other times you're like, it might not make sense from that ROI perspective. So I love when you think about scaling, it's really looking at your portfolio of stores and saying, what's going to make the most sense for this?
Yeah.
So tell us what you've learned. Yeah, you've had a lot of learnings over the last couple of years.
And it also depends, KFC is a very, I would say, a legacy brand.
Mm-hmm.
It has seen, it has its huge heritage. We have our franchisees partners who have been operating these stores for decades now. So the biggest challenge is to get people to even consider getting out of comfort zone and explore that something else is possible. That's the first starting point, I guess. Mm-hmm. So when you back up your recommendations or the changes that you want to bring about with some data points, it's always helpful. Otherwise, it just gets an emotional conversation. So what we did was to understand, and when we're making our kitchens efficient, you're also kind of tightening them. Again, we spoke about reducing our steps. But then we really did the capacity calculators for each and every equipment in the kitchen. And we did a throughput analysis through the peak hour, and then we determined that this is the equipment that we need for this projected sales, but then layer on top of it the growth assumptions. And that's probably the kitchen that we need. Now, yes, that needs to be supplemented with better learning modules prepared for our team members and stuff. But that's like, I still feel it's the easy part, right? It's look at the pros and cons. Like we're making our team members' lives much comfortable, which directly relates into the quality of product, the speed and accuracy, all those basics that we spoke about. And hence it's important like to have those database calculations. So I think our operations team and our team like working together, they did a fantastic job. And to your point, like when we established those sales bands based kitchens, again, reinforcing one size doesn't fit all.
Yeah, I love what you said just about, I think about it, happy associates mean happy customers, right? And the more you invest in your associates, the easier it's going to be to achieve order accuracy, hot food getting out the window, pride in the location, right? And if you're constantly having to train those associates just on the basic fundamentals, it's really hard to start to layer on different things that will continue to enhance the brand, right? Like AI ordering, understanding how the data you can get from them, whether it's, ordering on your app, getting them through the drive-through line. So there's so much that kind of goes down to that basic fundamentals, right? So let's talk a little bit. So, the topic is, the perfect drive-thru doesn't exist. So pretend like right now, like if we really were walking in a bar, we were on our napkin and we were writing this down, in your mind, I'd love to hear like, what would be your ideal drive-thru experience? And then how do we start to think about that as we would scale it across our brand that we're creating right here on stage?
If money was no object?
Yeah, money was no object. The best ideas start with just like, what do we think would be the best experience?
All right, there are a couple of things here. One is like, really ideally, you want to simplify the experience as much as possible. And a lot of brands are successful with that by just getting people to order the app and come in and pick it up. But for those customers that are just driving by and they just see your sign, they just want to pull in, right? How do you change that experience? So ideally, what I would do if I was like Bill Gates is produce a drive-through that you're pulling in, it would detect you, it would know who you are through beaconing technology. Lots of people are looking at object recognition, the camera and stuff, already know who you are, greet you, pull up your past orders, suggest things, but integrate with your loyalty program, your consumer data platform, but having an assistant assist you with the ordering. So, and what I don't like right now is that with most of our restaurants, it's pure audio. You're interacting with audio, right? I like the visual aspect. You have to immerse the experience using audio, using visual. I've seen some really good hologram technology that ideally you put a hologram out with a team member and you're interacting with a team member instead of like a speaker post. And then you take the payment out of the picture, right? So place your order, go pick it up. It'll recognize who you are already. It'll charge your card, whether it's through license plate recognition, through your app, pinging your app, just really similar to the scan and go model. You go in, you order, you pick it up and you go. You don't have to worry about payment anymore. Just increase speed of service.
Yeah. Rania, what about you?
Oh my God, that's going to be a little long answer, so please bear with me.
That's okay. That's okay.
Like, I love to start from the starting point, like capturing your customer as they're even like passing through the main primary street. Mm-hmm. So it's become so important that even if we have prototypical designs, we fine tune them to each location, making sure that the access points are actually very easily accessible. Mm-hmm. As soon as you enter, the navigational signage, not too much, very on point, and keep it as simple as possible. Everyone loves simplicity. I still fumble. I think we all do. We fumble in the elevators as to which level we want to go. And we have been using elevators for such a long time. Yeah. So thinking on that, like how simple and impactful. Like just go there or go here, nothing excess, and then make that experience simple. Now, of course, it needs to be very functional. given like how you navigate. Do you have enough car stacking? Do you have correct placement of menu boards and ordering and everybody loves, all of that? Because if that doesn't happen, that creates more friction and you lose points with your customer because they are the basics. But what I would love to do, and I'm a big believer of, what can be our disruptors for a brand? We all have been used to, okay, I'm going to a drive-thru, I'm going to pick up a sandwich and go home. Well, if you get your food hot, accurate, quickly, yes, I'm happy because I'm hungry and I get to eat my food. But we can't just stop there thinking that's all that our customers want. What if I really add more? We can't just assume that this is the best we could offer them. I do love the idea of the video. Like it becomes such a dead space, as if you're talking to someone and you're going and your food is coming out somewhere. Would love to see if we can give a glimpse into the kitchen, somebody waving at you. I'm a big fan of that human element. The restaurant spaces itself is a good example. Like this time I saw more segments that were talking about experience. Like the Museum of Ice Cream or the sound that we heard about. So we should not be blindsided by making it so comfortable and so convenient that we lose sight of how we can give them a much more better experience. And that could be through various sensory touch points. I also feel strongly that the parting impressions, like even say you are knocking it off every time your food comes out fast, everything, as the customer's leaving, what do you want to leave them with? So is there a way we can have a feedback mechanism right there? Because usually it takes so much time to get back to our customers, and you lose most of our consumers if your concerns are not addressed. So why don't we close the loop on all of that people also feel heard, and strive to get the best feedback. Yeah. It's motivating from the team too. So yeah.
I like that idea, and it goes beyond just individual technology, whether it's AI, whether it's kitchen innovation, whether it's a video system, right? Really, the big picture for success is all the technologies need to work together in sync, right? The integration has to be there. One of the big challenges with restaurant innovation right now is that people are working, a lot of companies are working in their own silos. The integration is not there unless there's a need or someone wants to pay for it, but they're not collaborating enough, and that's where we want to get to. We want to get all the suppliers up, all these individual systems and platforms to come up with a way where everything will integrate, everything will work nicely and play nicely together.
Yeah.
And just to add on that, so I also feel like the sequence should be reversed. I'm not saying it's not done in most of the brands, but you first identify what you need, and then we can work together to how technology can help us create that experience together. But sometimes I do feel that we are trying to force fit some technology. It could work in some cases, depending on brand to brand or what stage you're in. But that works. Like sometimes I could go to Min and say that maybe you don't have this technology yet, but can we have it? Like how powerful that question is.
Yeah, I think like for me, like my ideal drive-thru would be a combination of the two, and then kind of taking it a step further and thinking about how can we automate some of the tasks that the crew members have to do in the back. So adding an element of automation. So I think of, that with, the human factor, right? So you're freeing up the employees to be able to now feel less stress, that they're now smiling when they hand you your food out the window. They're not talking to somebody else, taking an order and payment and doing all of that. There's not that multitasking going on. But I think about some of these things that the different formats that are out there right now, and thinking about is it drive-through only? Is it do we take away the dining rooms? Like how do we right size the space? And again, it's not a one size fits all for the drive-through, but for me, it would be kind of going back to the basics. I think a combination of the two, right? Like, tell me where to go, make it intuitive for me when I get on your lot, because automatically, if I've decided to choose your brand, my satisfaction rate right there is 100%. I'm like, all right, I've chose to go here. I know it's going to be great. And if I get on the lot and then I'm confused or there's just a cluster of cars, I'm going to already, my stress level is going to go up a little bit, right? Yeah. And then, you know, when I order, if it's seamless, right? Like if it's connected to my app and you know, there's associates who are happy there, and there's some form of automation that has streamlined the back of house operations that I don't maybe even notice that they're there, but something just feels different from the associate experience. It's then like that whole customer journey has been reimagined, you know, for me. And the icing on the cake is like, give me feedback on my experience. And you can either get that through, you know, straight from the customer, but, you know, being able to see what's happening on my lot, how fast the cars are going through the queue, where's the bottlenecks, all of those things really come into play. And, you know, I think at heart, we're all kind of operators, right? And, you know, I know, Pradna, you and I could talk all day about time and motion studies and footsteps in the back of house. But those are the things that I think make the drive-through experience really come to life for the customer, is when they don't have to think about a bottleneck that we're experiencing.
Great.
Yeah, and there's one more experience I'd like to mention, especially this group out here with the developers and architects out there, is the experience of our service vendors, right? You have employees, you have customers, but service vendors, when they come in, they need access. Things. If I've seen so many times, especially in technology side, a service vendor would go in there. They see, I'm sure you've seen it, a mess of spaghetti wiring everywhere, everything just stuffed in there or cramped in that space.
Yeah.
Let's design a workspace that is conducive to some of these service vendors where things are accessible for the cable management, even a lot of the parts and pieces that they need to work on. Let's make it accessible instead of just cramming it in one spot.
Yeah, I know. I think yesterday morning we heard our partners from White Castle talk about that. It's like, give me lots of space for cable, give me place to work so I can future-proof. I might not be ready for it today to be able to do some of these things, but make it easier for me if I'm thinking about the future and I'm like, okay, I want to get there, but maybe I'm not there yet in all spaces. But yeah, to your point, like, don't shove this tiny little area and say, well, this is where all that tech stuff will go in this corner over here and this on the plan, and we don't know what it looks like. So no, I totally agree with that.
And I just want to add, like, yeah, great point, the delivery partners. I have heard so many times that, well, we need to segregate their access. It's not a very positive statement for me. It's not segregation. We just don't like you. We don't want you inside. Just go through another corner and a window, and it's all about their convenience as well. Imagine, like, our delivery drivers are constantly driving, picking food, delivering to customers. We don't know how a day in their life looks like. So rather than kind of segregating, calling it a segregation, how can we make it so easy for them? That's the way we think about our customers, like quick in and out through which are like design and technology together. But I think those are some of the finer points we sometimes might miss. The second thing, I do feel that a drive-thru doesn't have to be just going around the back of a building.
Yes.
I also am not a big fan of the brand shouting at top of their voices on the building surfaces that this is who we are like what we do. I mean, if I'm a repeat customer, just imagine, I'm not going to read all of that, but I'm certainly going to remember if it's a long line and if there are some queue busters, if someone's just kind of on the speakerphone, why can't we have more speakers just to let everyone know, like, hold on, we're preparing your food fresh and that's why it's taking time. I mean, I certainly appreciate that kind of interaction. And then most of the times we forget about the landscape. Usually back of the building is a yard, outdoor spaces. I'm not saying like we need to really spend money on making it look beautiful, but there are so many innovative ways and simpler ways for us to curate that experience. It just, our people are going to know that, well, you've thought of us.
Yeah, I think 2 points that you made that, I just want to kind of hit on is, the delivery drivers, right? So, a few years ago, there weren't delivery drivers in our stores picking up orders, going through drive-through lines. It was kind of, you pulled up and there was one way to order at a drive-through, right? You got in line, you ordered at a menu and the speaker box, and you pulled up and got food. And, now we have to think of a lot of different consumers, that are coming in. We have, the people that are coming in that are still using the drive-through. So through our survey that we did in our research, 25% of people say they still want to go inside of a QSR, which is higher than it was in COVID, obviously. So there's still a need for some consumers that want to dine in. I know, Men, for your brand, that's not a possibility, but there's still seating on the outside of the building. But then you've got, delivery drivers, you've got app orders, you've got, all these curbside orders, all these things. So it adds a layer of complexity. But in the end, they're all customers.
Yes.
Whether they're picking up a delivery, that's their job, but they're still a consumer of your brand, right? So don't give them a bad experience because they're still going to eat your food. So I think about that, and then just the exterior environment. Thinking about when your operators, when they start their shift, walking the lot, making sure that everything is looking good for that, because you're on the inside, and sometimes it's easy to forget about the exterior. So, we a lot of times put the drive-through in the back of the building by the dumpster, and there's not a lot of great experiences back there. So how do you engage them in a way that the exterior lot still feels part of the brand? So for me, that's important. I grew up, my dad was a restaurant operator my entire life, and there were many days that I had to walk the parking lot to make sure there was no trash or cleanup. So I guess maybe I take the exterior just a little bit more to heart, because that's how I was raised. But I think about those things, and you're right. Like, how do we stop the consumer's clock almost while they're waiting in the queue, when you have food that isn't going out the window in 90 seconds or 2 minutes, right? So it's made fresh, it's made to order. We're getting it right for you, and every time there's an interaction with an associate or something, it makes me feel like, oh, they care about me. They know that I'm here and I'm waiting and I'm important. Versus the frustration level you feel when you pull on the lot and you can't find where to go, and then you get in a stack of cars, and then you're stuck, and you're like, what are they doing? And then by then your satisfaction rate went from 100, now you're probably down to 50, and they got to get that order right, and it better be hot and fresh, or like I'm going to explode inside my car, right? So I think those were two, great points that you brought up as well on what would be, the ideal drive-through experience.
Yeah, I'm so waiting every restaurant to have that AI voice with my Indian accent. Like, every time I get different things, and I'm wondering, but my accent is constant. So if that error has to happen, at least that error should be constant.
Yeah.
If I ask for fries, I get Sprite.
Yeah.
I'm like, how else can I say it?
Yeah.
It's really surprising as we scale across the country. You're going to hit pockets where, like Louisiana, South Florida, there's different accents, and the beauty with AI technology is that it's never static. It's always learning and growing. So if it encounters a word that it doesn't recognize, someone will come fix it, and then the next time it encounters the same word, same accent, it's going to know how to handle it, and it's going to move on. So that's a beauty of technology, is the ability to continue to learn and adapt.
Yeah, that'll be great, because I always say Siri doesn't speak Southern, so a lot of times if I do voice texting or talking, it comes up with something completely different, and I look at that message later and I'm like, what? I did not say that. So for sure. So as we kind of wrap up the session, if you were to give any advice to your peers in the room on what's been your biggest takeaway or your biggest learning that you would pass on to them as they start to explore, different ways of developing their drive-through, whether it's through, kitchen equipment, back of house, AI, tech. What kind of parting words would you leave our group with?
I got a couple of things. Like, one is that when you look at innovation, you don't innovate just to say you're innovating, check the box here, you're innovating, right? You're innovating because you're trying to solve a problem or bringing business value into your brand. And the other thing is that while you're doing that process, it needs to be bought in and collaborate across the brand. So legal, marketing, operations, development, right? They all have to work in sync because each one of them has a role to play in here. It can't just be purely IT or a purely marketing project. It's a collaborative project.
Yeah, that's great. A lot of times we work in silos,
Yeah.
and you go to the final product and you're like, wait, nobody talked to Min or nobody talked to me, and then it creates a lot of extra work out there. What about you, Pradnya?
So I have a little bit different take on it, and it's not some advice or something. I just kind of urge everybody to start thinking a little bit differently. Unknowingly, we follow a herd mindset, so I just would caution to really understand your brand and your consumer before you take any decisions on, particularly these things come at an investment. But the second thing is, don't assume that your customers, don't cap their satisfaction levels based on your assumptions. Like, I never thought I would love a disco ball, but now that I'm here, I love it. I don't know why. And I'm trying to ask my question to myself, why do I love it? It's because somebody at least put it there for me to experience whether I like it or not. So there are a lot of myths that could be broken. Our job is to create those experiences. That's just what's going to differentiate our brands. And the differentiator is not just to stand out. A simple differentiator could be that your customers just purely love coming to your restaurant.
Yeah, and I think, for me, it's, always stay close to the customer. Always understand what they want. Always talk to your crew members. They're there day in and day out. They're the smartest people in your brand. The ones that are on the front line every day doing this. So for me, it's stay close to the customer, see what they want, experience it from their vantage points. And, I think what you said, like, don't innovate just to innovate, to say, like, we checked the box, we did it. But it's innovate in a way that's meaningful for your brand, and it makes sense for your brand. So some brands, it might not feel right or intuitive to add on different things, that are out there just because it's the latest, coolest, shiny penny, But in some cases, it's like, okay, what makes sense for my brand? What would make my customer love my brand even more and want to fall in love with us? And then what's going to make my crew members want to stay and build a career with us? There's a lot of longevity in this business, and people who've been here and love it, and continue to, want to, see this, the restaurant industry, thrive and grow and continue to, lead in an innovative space. So that's really my thoughts on it. It's, don't forget to talk to your associates. Don't forget to, experience it from a customer. And that customer is your delivery drivers. It's your associates. It's yourself. Like, how do you really feel when you go up to the brand? Because we want to create moments for our customers that really make them feel like they're part of the brand and not a disruption to your brand. So I think about that and just how we can, continue to, surprise and delight the customer every time they come on site.
I totally agree.
Yeah. All right. So I'm looking for Jason.
I'm right here.
Yeah. So
I'm right here.
I don't know if we have time for Q&A or if we're out of time or if
We're a little over time, but
Okay.
we're just heading into some deep dives after this. So yeah, room for like one or two questions if there are any. Yeah.
I have a question and just a comment. One of my pain points, like I will stop going to a drive-through, is if there's like cross purpose because they're trying to hit a timer on their end that's probably corporate given, and they're pulling me up. Like if I have my 5 kids in my car, no problem. You're going to take a minute to make my order, but it's when it's just me. And then I'm a pretty patient person, but they push me up, and now the person behind me is out before me. So how do you handle that balance of metrics versus, obviously customer satisfaction?
Yeah. Who wants to take that?
Well, on the Checkers side, what we have is a double drive-through where we've dedicated one lane in most of our restaurants to order ahead, right? So you could literally just order on your phone and just drive up, pick it up, and continue to go.
For us, what we're trying to do is identify that we need some couple of pull-up spaces where there could be multiple reasons why probably that order is delayed. We would rather get your order right than handing out an inaccurate order. But then I think it's so important to, if you mess it up, apologize and then say, well, just grant us 2 more minutes. But creating that pull-up spaces so that people can go there and then deliver it to them. Don't expect them to walk into the.
Yeah, I think the communication piece is key. So like, let me know why you're telling me to pull forward, right? If you're just like, okay, go ahead, and then you start to see people, it's the same thing if you're in a dining room and you see, the delivery drivers getting their food first. It's like, you're like, well, I've been here longer, right? But I think, sometimes it could be that, you've got to drop more food or they just ran out and it's going to take a couple minutes, whether it's in the fryer or on the griddle or whatever. But making sure the team member knows to apologize and say, hey, we're making your order fresh. If you don't mind pulling up and doing that. So some of it goes back to, we make mistakes, we're human, but how we teach our crew members to communicate with the customer, I think is still an opportunity that we need to continue to do. Like, don't get so caught up in the metric that I forget that there's a human there and I should say thank you and please and use my manners and appreciate that they came through my drive-thru today.
One more if we want to, yeah.
I'll be quick, but so there's one of the larger chicken companies whose, I guess, ice cream name is Chock-fil-A. I heard they said that if they have one additional car kind of in their drive-through length, that there's an increase in close to $500,000 in sales. So just curious in the drive-through from a design standpoint, what is the ideal length from the window to the menu board? And do you see, like what kind of an increase do you see as you add vehicles to that?
Great question. I mean, we usually have a formula of 5+3, 5 cars from order point till the pickup point, but that was again still a few years ago. I mean, we have done so much studies around, does a separate pay window break and grant more time for your order to get prepared? There are varying studies on that. We don't have a 100% yes answer on anything. I'm not so concerned about from the drive-thru window to the order point. I'm also concerned about what happens afterwards. Assuming that all our brands succeed and we all do really, really well, it's more important to also be mindful of the community, that our cars don't spill onto the main streets, as well as hinder the parking bays where people are walking in. So is there any creative way? We have tried escape lanes, like if it's too much backed up, you can actually pull up, park, and get in, or you can rejoin, or you can leave. I mean, and we're sorry for you to leave, but at least we are considering all of those scenarios through an efficient site layout design.
Yeah, we look at, from the operations side, we look at some simulation software when we start to think about how we lay out the civil plan within a space. And, do you need a double stack? Do you need a single stack? What does that look like? What's the order board location to the speaker box to that? So you're like, okay, how do you relieve some of that queuing space so that you can get more cars in? Not saying you need a triple drive-through, but in some locations, if you've got a small parcel, you might need to think a little more creatively of how you do that. So I'd be happy to talk offline forever about how we can stack things in the queue and do some simulation around that. But there is an art and a science, and sometimes there's a little bit of luck thrown in there too. If you can get one more car in there during your peak segment, how much more money that's going to generate for your box. But it really kind of, we'll approach it from what's the site, what's the street, where's the crossroads on that, and then we run it through some simulation of, okay, if we get a 4-minute order, is it a 3-minute order? Okay, if we start to bottleneck, what happens there? What happens to the queue? And then that starts to tell us how much more we can actually get, in addition to how much can your kitchen actually put the throughput of. At some point you meet capacity both in your lot and your equipment. So
I mean, I've seen a lot of brands do through app that if it's a large order, either give us extra time or park and we'll get it to you. So those are other ways, I think.
I'm just an IT guy, but if I was to do it, right, I would take the Disney approach, right? Hide all the queues in inside, trick them into looking, hey, there's only 2 cars outside. Once they're inside and committed, you pass through, and there's like 10 cars weaving back and forth your drive-through. That's how you get more cars in there. Just trick them.
All right.
Wonderful.
Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, look,
Appreciate it.
thank you so much. Can we give them a round of applause? Great way to finish here. Thank you.